Sorry. Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
Dragonclaw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
So, in honor of tonight taking place, tonight is the NFL Draft. When this episode actually drops, it's going to be about a little less than a month of the NBA Draft. And you know what? We've talked about several different figures and characters that we really would want on our side. So, in honor of the draft, I propose we do a battle of three. Since I'm the representative of Team Black, you're representative of Team Green, we're going to draft our own 3 teams.
3v3?
3v3. You get 3, I get 3. And you know what? Out of the generosity of my heart, because we, Team Black, are clearly the most honorable here, we will allow you to pick first, get the number 1 draft.
Well, no, okay, I got to know the parameters. I got to know what the competition is. What are the people I'm drafting for going to...
let's theoretically let's theoretically say that things don't go well in the series and 2 factions split off, and you need some warriors and some fighters and some leaders to lead these theoretical armies that could potentially be going on and be heroic figures to said troops. Who are your 3 that you're drafting? And I'll say this. You can draft anybody who's been in the show so far, dead or alive.
House of the Dragon, not
House
Game
of
of Thrones.
House of the Dragon.
So I'm not limited to quote unquote Team Green.
You're not anyone you want. You're bringing them to Team Green.
Okay, Jesus. So Bryce is springing this on me, so I need to do some quick evaluation. Looking at my cheat sheet here. So we're not strictly, it's not like a gladiator match. It is a war.
It is a war.
Well, this is going to sound enormously hypocritical of me, but I think my first draft is Daemon Targaryen.
You know, that you can't go wrong. Daemon Targaryen is a solid pick.
And that comes with a dragon, correct?
That comes with the dragon. So, on that front...
Fuck, I know you're getting...
You know, we haven't really seen him do too much, but you know what? Like, Daemon is sort of like Drake Alexander for our Heroescape figurines. And, you know, Drake Alexander has a part 1 and a part 2. I view Drake Alexander part 2 is how Daemon is. Drake Alexander part 1 is who I'm going to be selecting, and I'm going to be picking Aemond Targaryen.
I knew it! Dang it!
He's intelligent. He's a great fighter, and he's got the largest, most powerful dragon in existence.
That's what's happening here. We're just going to be drafting dragons.
Hey, well, you got the second pick, Austin.
See, okay. Dang it, this is where my unfamiliarity with the lore is biting me in the ass. Because I don't recall... Like, surely he was. You know, I'm not even going to look it up. Just
Timer's on the clock, Austin.
Fuck it, we ball. I am drafting Jaehaerys.
Jaehaerys.
Yes.
Fascinating pick.
But my question is, does he have a dragon?
Oh, he's got a dragon.
Yeah?
Great pick.
Excellent.
You've got a great pick. I'm not going to lie. I won't say who his dragon is because we're going to see his dragon later in the show on episode 10. So, okay, second pick. You know, he doesn't have the biggest dragon, but he still has a dragon. I am picking Rhaenyra Valyrian before he goes into exile. He's a proven warrior. He's very knowledgeable. He was leading a lot of the armies. And you know what? Even though he doesn't have that big of a dragon, the dragon has still wartime experience.
Fair. Not a bad pick. Also, I mean, you're a sucker for the aesthetic of that, so I think that your bannermen are going to be based around Sea Smoke.
Yes, Sea Smoke is our mascot. Hey, with your last pick, who you're going to pick for your team?
Okay, well, see, I was going to go Corlys because, as we established, of everyone who doesn't have a dragon, he is the most dangerous player.
Yeah.
In the mental games, in the physical combat, in the leadership, all of it. So that's where I was leaning, but I also feel like I'm going to get roasted, and if this, I don't know, if we were to plug this into some computer-generated simulation, if you don't pick someone with a dragon, then you're just eviscerated immediately. So instead, I'm going to go with the princess who never was, Rhaenys Targaryen.
Ooh, that is a solid pick. Solid pick. You know, this next pick is going to be really shocking to a few people, I think. But I think that this particular pick, again, based off of having a dragon.
You, personally, Bryce Wilson?
I don't like this character. In fact, I hate this character. He is not going to be leading any armies. He's not going to be making any decisions. He is strictly going to be a figurehead and somebody who's going out and fighting. I'm picking Aegon II because he's got the most beautiful dragon in existence, Sunfire, who is also quite massive of a dragon, if I say so myself. But I do want to point out, I'm going to be generous, Austin. I'll let you have Corlys because I was going to say we could pick one person.
One non-dragon rider?
One dragon rider. I'll let you have Corlys. And I love Corlys, but I'll let you have Corlys.
Okay.
I'm going to pick Harwin Strong.
Because
I need a loyal boy. I need a loyal dog here. And Harwin Strong, he's the strongest knight out there, and he's going to be loyal. And
he's loyal as they come. Yeah.
He ain't turning away. And I'd rather have him than Kristen Cole, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the next logical step here is we turn it over to the audience.
I think so.
That's going to be pinned to this episode on Spotify.
Why don't you go ahead and say who your team ends up being?
Right. So we have Daemon Targaryen plus Caraxes.
Yes.
Rhaenys Targaryen plus what's
Malaise.
the name? Malaise.
Yes. I think so.
Rhaenys Targaryen plus Malaise and King Jaehaerys. I'm sure he has some subtitle that I am omitting now. And his dragon.
Yes.
Who is?
We don't know yet.
Unrevealed, but Bryce assures me.
He a thick boy.
A big one.
And over on my team, I have Aemond Targaryen with Vhagar, the ginormous.
Yeah.
I have Rhaenor Velaryon with Sea Smoke, and I've got one of my least favorite characters in the show, Aegon II with Sunfire. I'm drafting Sunfire. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not drafting Aegon.
We all see right through it.
And then, of course, I've got who's going to be the leader of the foot soldiers. I've got Harwin Strong leading my boys.
And Corlys on my end there. I will commit to actually adding some graphics to the video of this.
Perfect.
All right, everyone.
Vote below. Comment who's winning.
Team Bryce or Team Austin? And with that, welcome everyone to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. My name is Austin Snyder. Sitting across from me is one of my oldest and dearest friends, Mr. Bryce Wilson. Bryce, what's going on today?
We're talking dragons. Well, actually, we're not talking dragons. We are talking big dragon energy, but we are not talking dragons.
And that's actually my notable first. I'll get that out of the way, that this is the first piece of content we're talking about on this show that does not feature a flesh and blood dragon. And this is something that we will be doing a little more of down the line, because, yes, it's a dragon show, but it is a bit of a stretch to discuss it on our dragon movie and television podcast.
There is dragon imagery in this episode.
Yes. Dragon carvings, I guess you could say.
Yes, a lot of them.
And mention of dragons.
And some mentioned that they were removed.
Indeed.
In particular, we're talking, House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 8, Lord of the Tide.
Right. Our first stretch pick. Stretching, not shattering, but stretching the concept of this show.
Hey, a little stretch never hurts.
No, it's good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Stretching's good.
We wouldn't know anything about that,
No, never.
but it's all about those curls. I go in there and it's the preacher for 14 minutes and I'm out.
And then I'm doing the tricep extensions in the corner.
Yeah.
But do we want to dive out right into the episode?
We better. It's a big one.
It's a big one. I think the first thing that we notice, I don't think they ever rightly come out and say it, but it's roughly about 6 years after the last episode.
It is established. Yeah. So it's 6 years.
Well, I don't think it's established that it's been 6 years. All that's said is Rhaenys hasn't seen her husband in 6 years.
Okay. Well, regardless, that's the accepted time
Yes.
jump we're working with.
But we start off at Driftmark where Corlys, it's informed that Corlys has returned to Driftmark and he's been injured in fighting. It just, the Stepstones are just...
What a tragedy, too. Corlys.
Yes.
On potentially his deathbed.
And what's even more tragedy to me is that Vaemond, his brother, is like not even showing any sympathy towards him, like straight up talking shit. And as I'll say later in the episode, is almost hoping that his brother dies.
Yeah. It's kind of sad. And I mean, this is his farewell episode.
Mm-hmm.
But that is one of the things that I feel like there's a debate one way and a debate another as to whether or not he was an honorable man. Or like
Corlys or Vaemond?
Vaemond.
Oh, I mean, I'll come out and say it. No, like he's not an honorable man. Like,
well, if I may jump into that just a little.
Yeah, go ahead. I've got my arguments. I'll
because I'm with you. I'm with you for the most part. But I also do feel like he is a man who stuck to his principles to the bitter end.
I will give him that. The pushback that I'll provide, and again, I know it's not quite the same, but in Westeros, if a king or a high lord legitimizes a bastard, that bastard does take on the name. Now, obviously, they're not acknowledging that Luke and Jace are bastards, but they've been legitimized by the king and by a high lord. Corlys has named Luke his successor. Whether Vaemond wants to admit that or not, that's not up to him. But the fact of the matter is, the Lord has said, you are a Valyrian. You will take my name. You will take my throne. You will take my land. So again, I understand like he doesn't have the Valyrian blood, but he's been legitimized by...
Yeah, but I don't think that's the point to him. I think his thing is like the legacy of the bloodline.
Is it though?
Like the actual reality of it, the DNA.
Though? I don't think it is.
See, and I do hear you because the other half of that, I'm going to take the headphones off here. What he's doing is very much like in service of his own station.
Yes.
So he makes a good argument for like his right to what he's claiming, but it also just so happens that would mean he gets to he'd take the Driftwood throne.
And I'd even go a little bit further, like if he legitimately believes it, and especially what the precedent that's been set by the throne, that would mean Baela would inherit Driftmark, not him, because it like.
Okay, we're currently recording, so I don't have the time to do the mental on that, but I'll trust you. That's probably true.
But Baela is the daughter of Corlys's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that it's still a direct line from the head of the family. Vaemond is a brother. He's the second son. And the precedent that's been set by the Targaryens with the throne is that you can pass it along to the next in line if they're female. So that would be Baela, because Baela is the oldest daughter of Lena, who is the daughter of Corlys.
Now, I do think that the whole like legitimacy of naming a female successor seems to be kind of up in the air. And am I right that they don't have any like known still living male heirs?
Correct, but at the That's an interesting question.
Bryce is getting a really peculiar face in that, but I that feels like another podcast.
That's season 2.
Okay.
Season 2, we'll discuss that. But no, it's, again, if we're going off of tradition that's been going, I get the argument. But at the same time, you can tell that Vaemond is, I think, keeping to the tradition is very much a second inspiration, because if he really was concerned, he'd be more concerned about his brother getting better, feeling well, rather than be like, well, we got to figure this out right now. We got to get this cleared up right now while he's not able to talk.
Well, the one last little bit to argue to his credit, and this feels kind of weird because it's like Vaemond's not one of my guys.
Yeah.
But I will say that he has established a precedent of like caring about the purity of the bloodline. That was the opening of the previous episode where he was throwing mad shade at the funeral for Lena. And he's just like, the blood must be kept pure, for the purity of the blood is the most important thing. So this isn't a huge character in the show, but what little time we've spent with him has been dedicated to like his commitment to that end.
And the only pushback that I'd have is if he was the third brother, I don't think he'd have this opinion or this strong of opinion.
Probably not. We don't know.
But it just so happens that this firm belief that he has seems to benefit him quite magnificently.
That's just classic Game of Thrones. Funny how that works out sometimes.
Funny how that works out.
The first scene. Him and Rhaenys
are having this conversation going back and forth. And you can tell that there are things going on in King's Landing because Vaemond says Rhaenys is talking about the king and the king's decision. And Vaemond says, but it's not the king who sits the Iron Throne these days, good sister, which very much infers that Viserys is not making any kingly decisions.
No, and later in the episode, it's revealed that that is the case. The only thing I want to point out in this first scene is, again, the very first shot, usually what carries some significance, the first and last shots of every episode. The first shot shows Rhaenys sitting the Driftwood throne.
Yes.
So we got two badass ladies getting shit done in Westeros.
Not only is she sitting the throne, but she's sitting the throne almost symbolizing that she's that she has power, that she might be able to make decisions.
Certainly in this episode.
Yeah, there may or may not be things that she balances the scales out.
And let me just say, kind of suits her. The whole princess or the queen that never was. Am I saying that right?
The queen that never was.
Maybe that would have worked out.
I'll say right here, I think a lot of issues would have been. I think there would have been a lot less issues if she was named queen.
She's such a badass in this episode.
She is such a badass. There would have been rebellions. But she would have squashed them. Like she would have, she would have taken care of those issues really quickly.
Especially with Jaehaerys's support. I mean, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, Jaehaerys. Well, by the time that she'd be named queen, Jaehaerys would have died. But that's
what you're saying. If at the Great Council he had pointed to her.
Yes, if they would have been appointed, she would have the power of the throne and immediately have the power of the Valyrians, like without having to And let me tell you, Corlys, he would get shit done. Would he be Hand? Do you think he would have been Hand or do you think?
Would they have been married at that point? Were they?
They were already married.
Yeah.
Or do you think that he would have been king consort?
Can you be both?
That's the thing. I feel like being hand, you'd technically have more power than king consort.
We're so off in hypotheticals right now.
In this world, there'd be a lot less issues. That's the point that I'm making. But also, I think it's worth noting that Baela is the ward to Rhaenys right now.
Okay.
Baela being the oldest daughter between Laena and Daemon.
Yes.
And we go to Dragonstone. And let me tell you, that shot when they're going over Dragonstone and then into the mountains, like...
Brilliant.
It was... I mean, they never miss. They really don't miss when it comes to the shots, when it comes to the music.
The aerials.
Yes.
And I mean, I'll still stand by the only edge that I will give that freaking show that aired right alongside this one, Rings of Power. The only edge I'll give it over this one is it had amazing vistas.
Yes.
But I'd still give this show like an A- at worst.
Yes. But if we also looked at the budget between the two of us.
Jeez, we got to focus.
We get the calculations out.
But this shot takes us into the volcano where we get no dragons, but we do get a little baby lore dump on the dragons here at the top.
Yes, we see Daemon crawl down and he has a little hammer just chipping away, and it almost looks like some sort of like volcanic shit that like he's digging.
Yeah, it reminds me of Alien. Have you seen any of the Alien movies?
I saw Predator versus Alien.
Oh no,
the best one.
But you know the iconography then,
Yeah.
like the egg sack, and when I saw the episode, that's the first thing that I thought of. They've done their own thing with it, and I like how smoky it is.
Yes,
especially. But I thought that when I saw it, and then in the behind the scenes, they do say that was their first point of inspiration. So a little pat on the back for myself.
Excellent.
Anyway, it looked cool. It looked great. Cool bit of dragon lore to know that that's how, like, that they incubate their eggs in volcanoes, I guess, when available.
Yes.
And
there were 3. Well, we didn't get to see the 3, but Daemon comes out of it and says there are 3 eggs that Syrax laid.
Yes, which there is some indication there, because he is so excited. He is so excited about this.
He is pumped.
And I think what that comes from is him recognizing that there's probably a war coming, and any extra dragons you can get on your side is a big deal.
I also do want to point out that, again, this is all internet chatter, but there are rumors that these 3 eggs potentially could be the 3 eggs that Dany gets in a Game of Thrones.
There are images of the 3 eggs in the behind the scenes stuff. Like you say, we don't get it in the actual episode proper.
Yeah.
But if you look in the behind the scenes stuff, I didn't do a side by side, but that kind of would have made sense. There were the 3 different colors. Yeah.
The black, the red, the green, the cream, you name it.
Fun to think about.
Ties and dies. But there is a letter from Baela that Daemon receives.
Beautiful calligraphy.
I paused and tried to read it.
It looks prettier than it is functional.
Yes. All I was able to get is that Vaemond was going to King's Landing. Like, that's really all I was able to read.
That's all you need to know.
Not necessarily. I mean, like, yes, it is, but like, I'm sure it's going in to be like, he's going there to demand the Driftwood throne. And
yeah, but we know that as the audience.
Yeah, we know that already. And I also say this show does a really good job. Really good job with aging their characters, because I feel like you can tell that Daemon is older.
Yeah, but it's been subtle enough that you look at it in this episode and you're like, are they really aging him up? But then you look at stills from episode 1 and you're like, oh yeah, for sure. Like he's probably in an hour of makeup at least.
Oh yeah. And like, it's the same idea with Viserys, right? Like, you can hardly tell.
Listen. This guy is not looking good.
We haven't gotten to King's Landing yet.
Okay, I'll save it.
But then we go into the actual keep of Dragonstone, and Rhaenyra is with Jace,
Working on his Valyrian.
And there was just so much that I actually really liked about this scene. Like I didn't really care for Jace. It's not that I didn't like him when I first watched it, but this second watch, I actually really like his character. Like he has a lot of like Robb Stark energy. I don't know if you.
Yeah, and I like because they've recasted.
Yes,
because he's aged up.
Yes.
And I like his energy. And this was something that carried over from the younger actor to this guy is these boys, they just seem so pure. And I'm sure that as things wear on, they get tainted and corrupted in one way or another.
If they make it that long.
Yeah. Anyway, but right now they're very easy to root for, and it's very easy to feel bad when things don't go their way, especially because they are true victims in a lot of circumstances. Like, yes, they are living royal lives, which come with tons of benefits, but they're also subject to royal ridicule.
And not only that, like, you can genuinely see the differences between Jace and Aegon. Like, I feel like there's a very distinct difference. Jace is very much he's hard on himself when he's not getting Valyrian. Like, again, I'm the sucker who has the subtitles on and I'm reading it, and he's like, stupid Jace. You got, like, he's over there. He's like kicking himself, making sure that he's staying on top of it. And like, he's pushing himself to be the best. And even when Rhaenyra's like, hey, you don't need to learn it in a day. And
meanwhile, Aemond in this episode's over here like, I try so hard. When we've seen that's not the case at all.
He's over here being Harvey Weinstein or Prince Andrew. Another royal figure that might be doing a little something.
Is that a not a political podcast, or
is the royal family politics Austin? You know what? They're public figures. They're free game.
All right, rip into them.
But I also really want to point out, and there's a part of me that I thought about doing this as an intro, but I already did the bit. I don't want to do it again. He looks so much more like Kristen Cole. The actor looks so much more like Kristen Cole.
It's carried over. I was watching as well, and I'm like, oh no, the theory. Bryce's harebrained theory still holds some validity.
And he doesn't have the curly hair. Like, it's the straight, long hair.
But his brother does a little more.
Both his brothers, both Joffrey and Luke, have that strong curly hair. Well, Jace looks more like Fabian. But Daemon asks for the room to get cleared out.
Right.
And shows the note.
Yeah. And I mean, the short of it is they're like, okay, well, we got to go to King's Landing and like defend ourselves, like for this the throne.
Yes.
The succession. And then we get there basically.
Yes, and I also, again, not that big of a thing, but it seems like the ship that they take to get to King's Landing is the same ship that Rhaenyra broke Kristen Cole's heart on and took to Driftmark.
It seems of the same fashion.
Again, this is more book stuff than it is the show, but they make an effort to show like their grand ships. They have like distinct figureheads on the boats. They have like distinct attributes. Like there's the Sweet Cersei. There's the Robert's Warhammer. There's different boats that have different names that have different significance. And it seemed like this boat was very much the same. And it even had like the little king's quarter right there. So it'd just be interesting that she's keeping that boat where she dumped Kristen.
You got to bear in mind that while that was the most pivotal day in Kristen Cole's entire existence, it was probably not top 100 for Rhaenyra.
But she kept the boat.
Wouldn't you?
I mean, if I could build a fleet of boats. Also, like, Kristen Cole, like, straight up betrayal. Like, she doesn't take betrayal well.
It's true.
But I know we've talked about just the atmosphere of King's Landing each time that there seems to be a shift change. King's Landing seems like straight out of Halloween Town almost. Like,
yeah. In my notes, I wrote sparser, colder, deader. And I mean, that's like, not only is it the set decoration, which I'm going to dig into a little bit more here, but it's the color correction. Mm-hmm. It's the way that it's lit. They're reinforcing this through every means, where you look at screenshots from that first episode and it's just like bright and colorful and joyous, and they have drained all of that out of it to the point where this does just look like Game of Thrones. And that's not an insult, because Game of Thrones is a hardcore, intense, dour show.
Yes.
As this season has become as well. But the difference between the two is pretty incredible.
And even like you said, there's a lot more of a dead feeling, because there's a lot of like dead leaves that are blowing around. Like, the trees even look dead. Like, it just seems like all the life is being sucked away with a particular character in the show.
Yeah, there's a new person on the throne that has taken to redecorating a little bit.
Well, first of all, before we get to that, there was not a welcoming procession. And we talked about that. Like, it is a blatant insult not to have people there welcoming royalty, especially where Rhaenyra is set. She's the heir. Like, she's going to be next in line. And all there was, and I don't want to say all, because Lord Caswell has made an effort to show that he is Team Targaryen, Team Rhaenyra, Team Black. And he came up, but he was really the only one there. Nobody else was there to greet him.
And that's the guy who comes out, right?
Yes.
And he's late.
Which means that nobody really was told that they were coming.
But it's revealed totally by design.
Yes.
Because Otto and Alicent have like a little exchange that it's like, were they received as expected?
Suckers? How about like them apples? But that does take us to, well, and then the castle's empty. Like, yes, there's redecoration, but there's nobody in the castle. And up until this point, we see servants, we see people always coming and going in the castle. There's no one in the castle.
Nah. People inside. And keeping to themselves.
And again, it really gives me the, like, I know that you're not going to agree with this necessarily, but Alicent, the past couple episodes, including this, has been giving me such Cersei vibes. Because if you go back and watch a Game of Thrones, when she is in charge of King's Landing, there's not that many people coming and going in the Red Keep. And there's a lot of personality-wise that she has that's very matching of Cersei. I also know she's a lot more merciful than... Alicent is more merciful than Cersei. I'm not going to...
She's definitely not there yet, but you're absolutely onto something, because, and this is not what I would consider a spoiler, but I'm going to say something that happens in Game of Thrones, so you've been warned. Cersei also takes to religion at a certain point in Game of Thrones.
I will say...
Or
she's coerced.
Yes, and it more so feels like she's using religion in Cersei's case. But
Alicent, I think, drank the Kool-Aid.
They're both using it, but Cersei more maliciously and I think that it really is something to Alicent that she has like taken some comfort, and I mean, it also just makes sense for her personality type that she would respond to the structure of religion.
Yes.
And again, like, not again. And I don't want to hate on, like, whatever you believe in, it's all cool. But that is something that I have noticed, that people who are, like, really devout, they benefit from the structure that organized religion can offer their lives.
Yes. And I know we've had this conversation, but I think I just want to bring it up, and I know it's jumping ahead a little bit, but again, it shows that the Targaryen family themselves are not that religious. the only Targaryen that I saw show signs of like actual piety was Aemond at the family dinner. Cause he like folded,
because he closed his eyes in respect.
Yes, like,
which is baseline, you know.
But nobody does that even for Targaryens. Like Aemond the second doesn't do that. Rhaenyra never does that. Daemon sure as hell is never gonna do that. Like you don't see Targaryens show. But again, I think that goes to them where they see themselves as gods. They having that inflated ego of being tied to dragons and being dragon lords. They view themselves as higher beings than just the regular folk.
Whatever it means to them, though, Alicent redecorating King's Landing with like religious symbolism, the Star of the Seven, and then the first when you see her, she has a big necklace or emblem on. That is, you know, even if she's doing it genuinely, it is spitting in the face of the Targaryen custom.
Well, not only that, they're replacing Targaryen sigils and Targaryen symbolism with the Seven.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we're replacing your gods because they view their family as the gods with new gods.
Yeah, and there's like a little exchange later in the episode between Daemon and Rhaenyra and Alicent, where they later are like, before they're like, I barely recognize the place, but they're commenting on the redecoration, and Alicent's just like, well, the Seven watch over all of us. And
Daemon's like, right.
yeah. Everybody knows what's going on there.
But going back to, again, I love small council meetings. The small council meetings are some of my favorite scenes in a Game of Thrones. I mean,
well, as established, the orbs are my favorite thing in this entire show.
Exactly. And we start off with our good Lord Beesbury. And he is boring everybody to death in this meeting. Like
he's professionally boring.
Yes. I've had a few professors like that.
Surely none that would listen to this podcast.
Maybe one. But
you want to tell him it's not him, or nope, we'll just let it go.
Professor Lovell, it's not you. If you're listening to Professor Lovell, you're not the boring professor. You're a great professor. I would never diss your name. I've had other professors that are boring.
There we go.
But Lord Beesbury gets cut off by Lord Commander Westling coming in and announcing that it's that the princess and Daemon have arrived, and it's the, like you said, Otto and Alicent are like, like,
yeah. But moving on, is that when she receives them, or?
Well, no, because the new Grand Maester announces that Corlys is not looking good and that he's possibly can die, and they talk about Luke inheriting Driftmark, and again, everybody is like,
yeah, I think there's. I didn't write it down, but there's some line that's like, "We must keep the what's good for the realm in mind," which is basically just them saying like, "Yeah, that seems like a good idea, Vaemond. Let's buddy up."
And also, the Lannisters are quite obviously picking a side. Like the Lannister guy, the new master of ships, he's clearly against Rhaenyra and is trying to do his best to build up Team Black. And that's when they call a meeting and Alicent leaves to go meet them, but she's intercepted by not Sir Arik, but Sir Eric. And there says that there's been an incident in the prince's chambers.
Yeah. And so we go to Alicent, look extreme upward angle on Alicent looking down on this poor girl.
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Because we go to the king's chambers first.
Okay. Take me through it.
So we arrive to the king's chambers, and first of all, there's dust covering.
Oh man, it's cobwebs on on the Valyria model.
Yeah.
Is there anything sadder? Is there any greater tragedy in this episode?
Austin, it makes me wonder what's going to happen to my mini someday. Are they going to face the same fate?
You got to do like I did in episode 7. You inherit them to someone. Naturally.
What if I want to be buried with all of them?
Oh, there you go.
Like an Egyptian prince.
That's what I would have assumed. But
until I die, though, they're just going to be, at age 56, I'm going to be unable to move in bed.
All right. You need to make enough money to hire somebody to dust the models, or at least get like a glass covering.
Yes. But we go to Viserys' bed, and I didn't know we were watching a Walking Dead, Austin. Like,
oh my God. You thought he looked bad in episode 6. You thought he looked worse in episode 7. In episode 8, old Viserys, not old, but
old 56.
Degraded, rundown, tired Viserys is looking like Christian Bale and the Machinist crossed with some old moldy cheese left out in the sun.
With his bandage quite noticeably covering half of his face.
Yes. The right side of his face.
Yes. And I just... Daemon's visceral reaction, I actually had a lot of sympathy towards, because I've visited family members that are either in hospitals or in
hospice?
In hospitals or
hospice. That's like if you're going to die, like the care that you receive.
Yes. I've visited some family members in hospice, but I've also visited family members in like retirement homes before.
Yeah.
And there's just a level of just like, obviously you're happy that they're still around, but there's that like what he was going through. I've felt like looking down at somebody that you've seen be full of life and full of energy and just be almost unrecognizable. Like they're not the same person. Like
yeah. And it's one of the, like, what do you say?
Exactly.
What do you do? And you don't want to be condescending, but you can see that they're just having such a hard. And to me, it seems very clear that Viserys wants to die.
Yes.
But that's the great tragedy of this period of his life is he can't die.
Yes.
Because he knows things are not set right. And as soon as he goes, it's just going to be chaos.
Yes.
The violence will erupt, and that's not what he wants his legacy to be.
Again, I have sympathy towards that because I've seen that seen that attitude, and not necessarily like knowing that he can't die, but just knowing that when somebody goes, like, all bets are off. Like, who knows what's going to happen with the legacy that he's leaving. Like,
yeah, but never with melodrama on this scale.
Not when there's dragons involved. But
he's taught, and then no, that's later. Sorry, I'm confusing a later scene.
And he doesn't even do the small talk that like Daemon doesn't. Like, he just goes straight into talking business. Like, again, you've used the quote that that was said last time. We all grieve in different ways. I think this is Daemon's way of grieving. Like, he doesn't want, like, he loves, like, we know Daemon loves Viserys. Like, he clearly does, but he doesn't know how to deal with this. He doesn't know how to handle this. It's not Daemon defense. This is just what I'm interpreting. And he immediately is telling him that Vaemond is coming to essentially usurp Luke.
Yeah, he gets the update. And it's also revealed that he is heavily medicated.
Yes.
At this point in time.
Very much so. And it's at that point when Rhaenyra goes and says, I have someone to introduce you to. And it's not until that moment that Viserys doesn't acknowledge Daemon. And then I don't know if he just notices Daemon, but
he seems kind of out of it.
He seems kind of
either way.
And I think when Daemon got acknowledged, I think that broke something a little bit in Daemon, because Daemon's been pushing his brother away for the last few episodes. Like, Viserys offered for him to come back.
Totally, yeah.
And instead, like, Daemon's been hurt and he's been just pushing his brother away. And I almost think that Daemon sees that he's made a mistake of pushing his brother away.
I totally feel that.
But
now we go to this poor girl. Unless you have something else.
Well, I do want to point out we meet Viserys II and we meet Aegon III.
Yeah.
2 characters that may or may not be important. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't even know why you bother. Let's move on.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where we get the power move, the power shot, where Alicent is looking down at the servant and the look of disgust on her face.
It's the Simpsons pathetic meme.
Yes. And again, like at the very beginning, like all throughout this episode, like I'm really trying to be fair and like not biased, but Alicent rubbed me the wrong way almost this entire episode up until the family dinner. But like this is one of those moments where I'm like, what?
Yeah, but also like Cersei'd probably just kill her.
Oh, she would. I'm not saying that she's just as bad as Cersei. I'm saying that she's reminding me of Cersei.
Yeah, okay. It's similar.
Yes. Cersei light.
This girl, though, in the scene gives a pretty strong performance, I'd say. Her
Yes.
name is Maddie Evans. And I pointed out, one, just because I think she's really good, really convincing, and she just looks so genuinely distraught.
Yes.
This is her only credited episode in this season. Her IMDb has her slated for half of the next season.
Ooh.
So, I mean, maybe that's just wishful thinking on her agent's part, or maybe she's just going to be a background character. But based on that, it might not be the last time we see her.
I will say they make an effort to give her a name in the show. They don't typically give side characters that would just be showing up once.
Did you write it down?
Yes, it was Dana. Dyana.
All right. Hope to see more of her.
And like we find out that Dana was abused by Prince Aegon, like in very inappropriate ways.
They don't go super into details, but I almost feel like letting the imagination run a bit on that makes it even worse.
Yes, especially just with how her reaction was and the lack of reaction from Alicent.
Sure. And you really get the feeling that this is far from the first time she's had to make an exchange like this, because she just pays her off.
No, she just pays her off, but she clearly threatens her as well.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like a hidden threat. Like it's like the most hidden of hidden threats.
Yeah, and it's like, here's a little sugar, you get a payoff, which is probably like more than she makes in a year.
Oh,
so
for sure.
It's not worth it at all.
No.
But she does that to probably ease her own conscience.
She gives a teaspoon of sugar to
go the medicine go down.
to make the pound. Because it's. And again, like I made note, this has clearly happened before. Like there's almost like a ritualistic situation going on here. And
now, to Alicent's credit, she does not seem happy about this.
No, but I don't think she's happy about it in the right ways. She's not happy. Like she's clear. Like if this was if this was Aemond who did it, I don't think she'd be as upset.
Strike one in his case. Also, I think Aemond's asexual, but we have...
I won't go as far to hear that, but you know what? He might be. Who knows?
We'll probably find out.
We most certainly will find out. But she goes to Aegon's room.
And confronts him about it.
Yes, and she's not happy about it. She's screaming at him. She slaps him, which again... very sad. It's not quite to the level of slapping Joffrey, but it's like half a step to that direction when she slapped. Because especially with how nonchalant he was, like it's just a little bit of fun. Like
this scene reveals that everything we've seen from him up to this point, it wasn't a phase. Like this is a bad dude and the worst kind of person to be in line for the throne.
Prince Andrew.
Whoa, what was that?
I didn't say anything.
So this next scene.
Well, I do also want to point out that Helaena comes in at the end of this fight and she's like, "Where's Diana? She needs to dress the children." Like,
Yeah.
again, just
Is that the girl from before? Or-
Diana's the servant,
Yeah,
who got
got it.
dismissed. And to me, that just shows how, like, obviously she's not completely oblivious because she makes a toast later on in the episode. But Helaena seems to be a little bit oblivious and airheaded towards Aegon's true nature.
Yeah. Or maybe she has a little bit of what Bran develops in Game of Thrones, where her like galaxy brainness numbs her out a little bit to the problems immediately in front of her.
Maybe. But it takes us back to Viserys' room. And that's where Daemon's acknowledging that the Maesters are clearly affecting the king and his ruling. Like, obviously, Viserys needs medicine and he needs the milk of the poppy for the pain. But Viserys, like, Daemon is throwing the allegation that they're doing that on purpose, making it so he's dependent on it. So he is too drugged out to rule.
Possibly. And you've also already outlined a potential alliance between the Maesters and the High Towers, and that would clear the way for them to seize more power in this situation.
Again, I will acknowledge it's a stretch that they are doing this, but at the same time, and they've even said in the show that the Maesters are the most knowledgeable people when it comes to medicine in the world. I feel like they could have done something with whatever's afflicting Viserys.
Eh.
Who knows?
I mean, the maggots weren't getting it done.
What are you talking about? That's high science.
You
right
still
there.
want it? Okay.
But Alicent comes in, and this scene with her just rubbed me the wrong way in so many different ways.
So this is with Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Alicent.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think this might be the first time that we see Alicent, adult Alicent, Olivia Cook Alicent, smile.
Yes.
And the series up to this point, and it's right at the end of the scene where she just gives like a little, and it is so petty. Did you catch that?
I'm not. It's not coming to mind, but the entire time I was boiling. Like I could feel the rage that Daemon was feeling right there. Like it. She was. It was unnecessary. A lot of the stuff that she was doing, she was clearly gloating in it, and she was clearly enjoying the anger that is being felt.
I won't deny it.
And to me, that's still showing that she has like this level of emotional immaturity that she has to herself, where she's just gloating in the amount of pain and suffering that she's able to cause Rhaenyra.
Her mortal enemy.
Her mortal enemy, yes. But still, like,
Yeah.
I will go back to the point where Alicent at this point is actively making it so there will, like, Alicent is scared of a conflict that will break out between their two families, but she is actively pouring gasoline on the fire rather than doing anything to temper the fire.
Yeah, but she later.
Right?
She makes up for it a little bit. A lot of characters do.
Yeah.
Does this take us to the courtyard?
I think that does, Austin. What happens in the courtyard?
We get introduced to the new big swinging dick in town.
The biggest swinging dick until Daemon comes in.
Well, they make a point to show Aemond, all grown up, recasted,
Yes.
best Kristen Cole. And now it is like a for funsies sparring match, but that is almost showing the hierarchy there, because we've seen Cole beat Daemon
Yes.
in combat.
Yes.
So to see Aemond best Cole, it's indicating that he's right on top there. And everything in this episode seems to indicate that this kid has gotten a bit of an ego over his giant freaking dragon.
And you know what? I respect Aemond in the sense that he has worked for everything that he has, skill and talent wise. Aegon has not worked for anything that he has in his life at this point. While Aemond, and again, it'll be brought up later, he has studied. He's been avidly hitting the books. He's been avidly training at swords. He doesn't have to.
He was open to the idea of marrying his sister.
I think it was more than a little open to it. He would do his duty, and I think he was. But he's clearly very much he's all in.
I'm excited to see where his character goes.
I am he very much is in the top 5 favorite characters for me. Like, this version of Aemond is one of my favorites. But something that I also noticed during this is that people are still they're obviously not outright saying it, but they're clearly giving weird looks to Luke and Jace, because Luke and Jace come and watch.
Yeah. And it's been, I'm sure that there are a number of new individuals about court that this is their first time laying eyes on them. And it's like, oh my God, yeah, they're definitely not Valyrian.
They don't quite look like Valyrians.
Oh yeah, the rumors seem to be true. May we, at this moment, now that we've seen all of the new actors, discuss the recasting?
Yeah, I think that's a great time to discuss the recasting. If you don't mind me just starting,
go for it.
The only one that I have 2 that I really am having a hard time with, and that's Aegon and Helaena. I feel like they dropped the ball a little bit on both of them.
Yeah, because bottom of my list, convincing wise, is Rhaenyra. When they recast Rhaenyra, I'm like, that is not the same person at all.
Yes.
And it's made worse by how good some of the age up casting is.
Yeah.
Like we've said with Rhaenyra and Alicent, especially the aging up those characters, is like, oh my goodness, how'd they find people who could give performances this strong that looked this similar to each other?
Yes.
To me, Jace and Luke, great. Also passing.
I'd say Luke is better than Jace for the recasting.
Okay.
Not that Jace's is not, but Luke's legitimately looks like it's very believable. I still will give the credence to Alicent and Rhaenyra. I think that's the S tier. A tier, I would place both Aemond, and I would place Luke there.
Aemond's more of a B to me.
Okay.
And that I see that, and you stare at the two of them side by side, the two actors, and you're like, I guess. But it's still a bit of a stretch by the standard set by those higher tiers, you said.
Fair. Well, here's my question. Who do you think is more convincing, Jace or Aemond? Or would you put them about the same?
I'd probably give it to Jace, only
Really?
just. And I didn't look too close. I feel like we spend more time with the younger Aemond, and maybe that's all it comes down to. But his face seems a lot longer than the younger actor.
I've seen people's. Have you not seen Peyton Manning? Did you not see what that man's head looks like? Then?
And honestly, I'm not too precious about this. None of this is.
This is us being nitpicky. This is literally us. Just
it's just a fun thing to dig into because there's a lot of the time jumping recasting in this series. So I'm not bothered. Especially I do not want them to sacrifice quality of performance. Short of recast, casting a different race. I do not want them to sacrifice performance.
And for me, it also very much feels like that these adult characters are the characters they wanted to have.
Yeah, they've said that they did it backwards, which is the way to do it, because this seems to be the cast.
Yes.
Like we have arrived with this episode that this series is going to be rocking with.
Like this is the third pilot. Like,
now, do you want to know something funny?
let's hear it.
Aegon 2. This actor, okay, I have the names here. Ty Tennant is the one who played young Aegon.
Yes.
And this new one is Tom Glencarney.
Okay.
And I actually really like what he's doing with the character so far. I think he's great.
Yes.
These two don't look like each other.
Not at all.
But the funny thing is, they played younger and older versions of each other in another movie. They played young and older Christopher Wiseman in the Tolkien movie.
Well, I didn't see that one.
I didn't see it either, but it's just
Why?
funny that it happened two
Why?
times.
Like
two nickels.
I would believe the younger Aegon. Like I feel like the younger Aegon looks a lot more like the older Aemond. Like significantly more like the older Aemond.
And everything about them could work except the nose. The nose is all wrong.
Yeah.
So I guess in this universe, his nose got broke like 7 times.
Aegon or
Aegon.
Yeah, well, Alicent broke his nose.
Yeah, that's the slap. It's all there, Bryce. We just had to dig in.
But would you also again? I think Aegon is the second. Like Rhaenys, we love Rhaenys' character. We love what the actors are doing, but is the least convincing of the age.
Yeah.
Aemond the second is the second.
Aegon.
Aegon the second is the second least convincing.
Yeah, I'd put them like I would put Rhaenys D tier and Aemond. Oh, this show, man. I would put Aegon in the C tier, just barely.
And again, I know we hardly see young Helaena, but I really do. Like, even if you have to pull it up, like,
okay, you keep us going, and I will pull that up. But I actually didn't take note.
Okay.
On her.
No, that's fine. But the last part of this scene that's pretty significant is that at this point, when everybody is looking and sort of questioning Jace and Luke, that's when Vaemond arrives. And I think it's very significant that Vaemond is being escorted by Hightower soldiers. He's not being escorted by Valyrian soldiers. He is being transported by soldiers that have the Hightower crest on their chest plates. And
I feel a plot brewing.
A conspiracy, some would say.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes us to small council meeting number 2, but there's only 3 people in attendance for the small council meeting.
Yeah.
There is the queen, there is the hand, and there is this slithery snake Vaemond.
I would like to make a note that our council is still smaller.
Our council is smaller.
The smallest council is in session for this episode, as we've re-entered the studio apartment of the dragon. Stop! Don't do that.
I didn't say anything.
Okay, yeah, but I was worried about it. I was this close to muting your ass.
I know the rules.
But for the audio listeners, Bryce did remove his orb, but he didn't speak. There will be no penalty. Anyway, carry on.
But Alicent is clearly losing it in this in this particular scene. I think she knows that what she's about to do, like be a part of, is going to set in motion things that she's not ready for. Because if you think about it, if if Luke does get deposed right now as the Lord of Driftmark, that could kick off the war right then and there. Because if he's delegitimized, Rhaenyra is going to be delegitimized. And I don't think that Rhaenyra and Daemon are going to just take the delegitimization.
I mean, thankfully, we sidestepped that one.
We haven't gotten there yet.
They've seen the episode.
That they don't.
Okay, but I have returned from examining Fia Sabin and Evie Allen, who both portray Helaena Targaryen.
Helaena or Elena?
Yeah. Helaena.
Okay.
Yeah. You got it.
Okay, sorry.
They look very similar. I'm not
Really?
sure I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Maybe I just need to see a side by side because I feel like they didn't really look.
Well, at least the photos they've chosen for the wiki of Westeros, they look really spot on.
I think that the biggest difference for me is we see Helena always happy as an adult, and she always was like a little gloomy and like
Yeah, it could
somber.
be a slight performance mismatch because I'm a big believer in that effect where like I'll buy it when like one of my favorite examples is Looper. Have you ever seen Looper?
I'm not sure if I have.
Super cool movie. It's a time travel movie where why can't I remember their names? Joseph Gordon-Levitt and he's Die Hard. He's John McClane. He's in Pulp Fiction. He's bald. This is embarrassing. You know what? I'm just gonna sit here till I come up with it because this is a huge actor. Moonlighting. He was in The Fifth Element. Cop Out.
The fact that you think that I'm gonna help you out here.
Do you know who I'm talking about yet? Okay. He's like one of the biggest actors ever.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, you can just start guessing if you'd like. This is gonna get cut out on the audio, but you YouTube viewers get the full drama.
Johnny Depp.
It's not Johnny Depp. He's bald. He's been bald for
Michael
a long
Caine.
time. No.
Bruce Willis.
It's Bruce Willis!
I had to, what?
It is Bruce Willis! Listen, like, most of that is on me, but also I named like 8 things Bruce Willis is in. All right, so now we got to center up so that I can make the audio edit work. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis play the same character.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
You drink water?
Yeah.
You use the restroom?
Cheers.
We have fun.
Okay. Yeah. So Bruce Willis.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis play the same character. And they do their damnedest, but those two do not look at all like each other.
No.
They got their earlobes, like one has detached and one has attached. Bruce Willis is very bald. Like, I don't think Joseph Gordon-Levitt is losing his hair anytime soon. There's even like a montage in that movie where it's like Joseph Gordon-Levitt like losing his hair a little bit, and then it's just Bruce Willis, and it is so jarring. But it's in the performance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance there. And so like they're like really digging into like playing the same character at different points in his life.
Yeah.
And that on top of it just being a crackerjack, like amazing, thrilling movie, you totally buy it. It works.
And for me, I feel like Helena as an adult is very much that Luna Lovegood, like, woo, sort of airheaded.
She kind of looks like Luna Lovegood
She
too.
kind of does. She kind of does. And not only that, but the younger version, it's almost like a female version of Aemond, like demeanor wise, like always moping. And I shouldn't say moping, but just has that more like solemn demeanor.
But okay, so that's on Helaena.
Yes.
Settled.
Yes.
Kind of looped back on that. I think we are to. Is it
the smaller council meeting?
Yes. Yes.
And like I said, Alicent is very uneasy. She is not. I think she knows what they're about to do is about to really kick things off and set in motion things where it could be getting ugly.
And this is reinforced by the cinematography.
Yes.
And this might count as a little bit of Alicent defending. So you can call me out on it if you want. But she's framed like through a chair to where she almost looks like confined.
Yes.
Like she's being restricted or controlled by her surroundings.
And I'll say this, as much as I despise Alicent, especially in these past couple episodes, I really do see Otto's influence.
You hate Otto more. We all know it, Bryce.
It's Otto's fault. Everything bad in the show, everything that goes on comes back to Otto. No matter how fat the leech gets, he still wants more. Because he and Vaemond are clearly like, yeah, this is it. We're going down. We're about to get because this is like, if they pull off what they're trying to do, this is a huge score because as Vaemond says, Vaemond will be very indebted, like very, I can't remember his exact wording, but he pretty much says that if he gets the Driftwood throne, he will be Alicent's, and they have the largest fleet. And even though this is a world of dragons, boats are still important. Like,
next best thing. Yeah.
Next best thing are boats.
And maybe it's this scene where they said, like, yes, we must do what's best for the realm. So I might have mixed that up, but it's the same energy regardless.
Oh, yeah. Like the small council members are very much still in favor of Alicent. And this smaller council meeting is reminiscent of that. But is there anything else that we want to cover?
No, we better keep moving.
Okay. So the next go to the Godswood, and it's Rhaenys who's in the Godswood.
Oh, hell yeah.
And again, I get very much a Halloween vibe when you're like, and it could also be that winter is coming and this is more of the fall because
maybe
like you get that feel to it, but it's that dreary, that's dead feeling.
And this, I've already said it, but Rhaenys just comes across as such a badass.
She is.
In this episode, which she is all the time. But they're talking about what's about to go down, and Rhaenys is a little cold to her, but pretty respectful considering that she has plenty reason to believe that Rhaenyra had her son murdered.
Yes, like. Respectfully, she all indications show that Rhaenyra killed her son, even though we as the audience know that Rhaenyra's did probably the most for Rhaenys. Like,
yeah, we know that. But Rhaenys is she's being very cool about it, and Rhaenyra makes her a pretty tempting offer. A
pretty good offer.
Yeah. So, but you might say a desperate offer. I was feeling that before Rhaenys pointed it out.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I don't think it's just her thinking about this because what has Corlys been so focused on this entire time? He wants a Valyrian on the Iron Throne. Like, that's all Corlys wants.
That's what it comes back to.
And even though Rhaenys knows that Jace is not a Valyrian, I think she's still like, okay, I can still get a Valyrian for my husband to be on the Iron Throne.
And I could see that that being a bigger draw for her, knowing that he might be about to pass.
Yes.
Like to honor him, she's going to act in the way that he would, maybe not the way she would have alone.
But she does also say that she doesn't really, like, even though she has authority, she does like she almost says that the decision's already been made. Like in a way, it already has. Because if we believe it, if the high towers are leading the court, the jury's already rigged. Like
Yeah, kangaroo court.
Yes.
If Viserys hadn't pulled his big baller move that's coming up, I'll zip it. But speaking of Viserys, unless you had more on that scene.
No, no.
There's a very moody and wet? No, because it's indoor. There's a very moody scene between Rhaenyra and Viserys that evening, right?
Is it
the storm?
Oh yes. So yes, she comes in. Like Viserys is like half asleep and half drugged out.
Yes. Yeah. And I will just disclose that I am very much a sucker for a well-timed dramatic lightning strike.
Yes.
So I loved what they were doing there. I thought it was a great looking scene. And the meat of it is that she kind of makes a plea to Viserys to intervene in the proceedings the next day.
Although as much as I love this and love what it leads to, this scene in particular is going to haunt Rhaenyra because she brings up the Song of Ice and Fire. She's having a conversation with her father, and Viserys is talking, and he's even like saying, "My only child." So to me, he's one, either A, losing it, or B, I mean, he is losing it. Like, I know he loves his children, like his other children, but he views Rhaenyra as his only child.
Certainly his favorite.
Certainly his favorite. And that leads us to the king getting work done on his back.
Right.
This is where we get like our first shot of him like unrobed.
Right. Okay. So let me, just for my own benefit, on the scene between him and Rhaenyra, though.
Yes. Sorry.
Because she's asking him, like, does he still believe the thing? And he does confirm it.
Yes, but he's clearly drugged out, and it's really hard to tell. And he's not really responding. Like, he's responding, but he's not really responding because he's saying a lot of nonsense as well.
Got it. Okay. Good to move on.
Because, like, there's a lot that he's actually saying, and the subtitles don't even show what he's saying. So, to me, that shows that he's just muttering. And you can see that Rhaenyra is losing hope. She does not think things are going to be going well. But then we see the king getting work done. It's the next morning.
Some impressive special effects work on this one.
Yes. And most notably, he asks Otto to prepare a feast.
Uh-huh.
And they're going to prepare a feast for later that day. And he turns away the milk of the poppy that Otto tries getting to him.
Oh, which... Paddy Considine, MVP of this season.
He should have gotten an Emmy.
A nom, I think, for sure.
I thought he got nominated.
I will double check it, but I looked up earlier. I don't think he got nominated.
Wow.
Listen, I'm not as big a TV watcher as you, but I find it hard to imagine somebody being more deserving, especially, and some people feel differently, but like knowing that he's only going to be in this one season.
Well,
I feel like he should have had it on lock, like the nomination at least.
And again, like we're watching, full disclosure, us not watching, like a show that Austin and I are both watching together is Succession. And as we know, the actor of Roman won an Emmy.
Yeah. Well, I think basically that whole core cast won Emmys for the show.
Yeah, but how did Paddy know?
Okay, I'm going to have to circle back on it because it's going to take me a second, but I'll see who was nominated that beat him.
Okay.
But incredible work. And this episode in particular,
yes,
the agony that he sells is next level. And that's through heavy makeup. That's through significant special effects work, like body double special effects work.
And I have to say this as well. I don't know if you got this vibe or not, but he almost was, like he viewed to me not as an old man, but like an old dragon. Like I legitimately looked at him and he was giving off like if a dragon was about to die. Like I don't know if it was just almost the pain that he was in was so made him almost a little animalistic, but his movements, just how worn down he was, like
Yeah, and there's so much nuance in all of that. Like the little utterances that he makes, it's in the voice, it's in his eyes, the way he grits his teeth.
mm-hmm.
And we get more of that, but this is kind of the first between this and the scenes
The climax.
Yeah, but I was say the scenes earlier where he's just in bed with a bandage, like you get a taste of it there. This is taking it to another level. And in a little bit, it's geez, what a performance.
But we do go to court. Court's called, and I do want to make note. It is a small court. There's not that many people that are actually in attendance of this.
Yeah, and that to me is more a symptom of just Alicent's King's Landing, because like all of the area is sparse. I think that's just kind of what it is now. Like people are not comfortable in court or about.
Yes, I do think that very much could have about it. And the aerial, but the aerial shot that they start off with of showing the Iron Throne and then showing Otto, I just loved it. Like it was
that's the big one, right?
Where it's right above the throne and Otto is starting to open up court and it's like slowly like zooming in and angling down.
Yeah, I think that's like a big like special shot that took like days to design. It's great. They talked about it in the behind the scenes that they singled out that one, and worth the investment, I would say.
Good soup. But Otto gives the floor to Vaemond, and Vaemond starts talking about how pretty much that he needs to be the one who inherits. He's very much insinuating that Luke and Jace are not legitimate, but he, in his credit for now, is not coming out and saying it. And Alicent and the Greens are clear. Like, well, Alicent in particular is quite happy, quite pleased with herself.
Yeah, and they think they've got it on lock.
Yeah, they
like you say,
like it's a layup. They've got Otto in the seat. They've got Vaemond over here, and to be honest, it doesn't look too convincing for Rhaenyra. And right after Vaemond wraps up his thing, you also see Vaemond is so cocky.
Oh yeah,
like he like the level of cockiness that he was like. I've only seen one character display that much cockiness in this show.
Aww.
And that character's name is Daemon Targaryen. So Rhaenyra begins to give her speech, but when the doors open and the music changes and we do see King Viserys come in, and I don't know what it is about this. I mean, I do know there's a lot to this scene, but each time I watch this scene, because I watched it on YouTube after it came out, I watched it when I initially, but it's such a moving scene, in my opinion. Like it's
where he comes into court.
He comes into court, like
yes, and I actually kind of flipped on it this watch to its benefit.
Okay,
because the first time I saw it, I'm like, is this a little too much? But on my second watch, I settled in where I'm like, no, they don't oversell it. And again, the melodrama of this scene, like the stakes that have built up to it, I think it's an earned moment.
Yes.
And the music in support of it, again, Paddy Considine really selling all the physicality of this.
Yes.
Blown away. Hats off.
And it's one of those, and again, I'm sure everybody has seen it at this point that are fans of it, but even though like he's walking towards the throne, he's looking at Rhaenyra and keeps glancing at her. And when so there's something
that's like his North Star.
That's the thing. Like you see several things, like he wasn't going for the throne. He was going for her. Like he was going for his daughter. He was very much doing this for the love that he shows Rhaenyra and obviously for the love he shows Aemma.
Okay, do you want to hear about the Emmys?
Let's hear it.
So I assume he would be leading. Do you think he'd get a leading or a supporting nomination?
I could see either way.
Okay, well, either way, I absolutely feel like there should have been room for him because these are I'll do the supporting first. Outstanding supporting actor in a drama series 2023. The nominees are all from The White Lotus and Succession. So they are already doubling up big time, which Matthew McFadden won, who is Tom in Succession. And he's great. Also, I do feel like that is more truly a supporting performance than Patty would have been.
I think it's just tough because everybody is sort of a supporting character. Like, I would say that Alicent and Rhaenyra are the main characters of House of the Dragon.
Yes, but you can't do that in this case because they're portrayed by different actors throughout the season. So if there is a consistent actor, using that as a gender neutral term, leading this first season, I think it's Matt Smith as Daemon.
Okay.
And I think it's Paddy Considine as Viserys. I think the tale of those two brothers, I think those are the leads. You could kind of slide Corlys in there.
Corlys, I think, is definitely more of a support. Like, as much as I love his character, like Corlys and Otto are both very much in that same.
See, yeah, and it's even tougher than it is with movies when you're talking about TV. But I agree with you.
But the fact of the matter that none of them, like,
no acting nominations.
Yeah,
I think the show won. Yeah, it won Outstanding Fantasy / Sci-Fi Costume. That's the only award that the season won.
Robbed.
Which it deserved that. We've discussed it ad nauseum. But
who got the leads?
Yes. So to me, he should have been lead. And the nominations there were Jeff Bridges for The Old Man, which I know nothing about. Maybe that's amazing. Brian Cox for Succession. Solid. Jeremy Strong for Succession. Good.
Which one is Jeremy Strong?
He's the oldest son.
He's Kendall?
Kendall, yes.
Okay.
Kieran Culkin for Succession.
Roman.
Yeah, who won, and cool that he won. It's a good performance. I would give it to Patty all day over that. Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul. I love that show.
I'll say this. The show doesn't deserve an Emmy. He definitely deserves the Emmy for the performance he's doing in that show.
I haven't finished the show, though. So for the season he's being nominated for, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm on season 4. I think he is excellent. I'm not sure he deserves all the awards, but again, I haven't got to the later seasons.
Fair.
We also have Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us. That's the 6th nomination.
And we both haven't seen that. But the thing is, Pedro is always like...
He's good.
He's always good.
Yeah.
But the fact that none of them were nominated, like nobody was nominated.
And I think it is part of it where it's the split. So I think there's going to be more potential for that down the line. But we've spent way too much time on this. The point is, now that we have reviewed the nominations, I think we can agree there was absolutely room for Paddy Considine.
Of course.
Back to his big scene, though. Somebody's got to call up the crab feeder and let him know this is how you do a cover-up mask.
This is... Yep. And again, this scene just really was moving for me. I know that I am a sucker and I get emotionally swayed quite often. But like this, I don't know why, but it was always... every single time that I've watched it, it gets to me. And
particularly... the moment where he drops the crown.
Well, because he's first pushing away all of his Kingsguard that are trying to help him. And then finally, when his crown falls off and you're just like, is he actually going to make it? And Daemon comes in. And I think it's very significant of Daemon. Like, he didn't immediately start helping him. He was like, essentially...
asked for consent.
Well, no, he was like, come on. Like he was like
Yeah.
urging him like that was more. And I think that's what he needed. Like Daemon knew that Viserys is still a Targaryen. He still has his pride and he doesn't want to be pampered. He doesn't want to be babied. He wants to be pushed. Like,
yeah. And this moment, like, very emotional scene overall, but this little micro interaction to me is the most emotional moment in the entire season, at least through this rewatch so far. Oh,
go ahead.
You say it's the last interaction between the two of them, but I actually love that. It's the so this moment, funny enough, was reported as an accident. And I always look at that with a little bit of suspicion because it's almost a too good to be true kind of thing. But if that's how it worked out, then I am so grateful for it. Where they say like his crown just like fell off while he was doing the scene and like Matt Smith went to go get it. So like, oh yeah, we got to reset for the take. And then the director is like, wait, this is it.
This is cinema. Which, funny enough, when we get to it, there's another scene that's similar where it wasn't scripted. It was something that was going on, but we'll get to that in a bit.
I have a little more though.
Perfect.
So apparently at the dinner scene later in the episode, Daemon was supposed to have a toast to Viserys as part of that kind of round table thing, like sort of like mending their relationship.
Yeah.
I think this does all of that.
Yes.
And the producers on the show seem to agree where you get all of that more economically in just this little tiny moment, which goes back to us talking about in our early episodes where it's like Daemon just wants to find a way to connect with and support his brother.
Yes.
And finally, he finds that moment. In his most dire circumstance, it's just overwhelming. I loved it.
And to be fair, I'm glad that they cut like a toast out because there's just one, it's not Daemon to give a toast like that.
Not sincerely.
And also, like, the last time we heard Daemon give a toast, it was the heir for a day.
To my memory, yeah.
Like, so there's like negative connotation to that. Like,
yeah, and I mean, you could maybe stretch it to where it's like a toast that tore apart their relationship and then one final toast that brings it back together. But I think this works so much better on every level. For
sure. But as much as I'd love to talk about this scene, like
I think we got it.
But he sits down and he pretty much says like, why are we doing this? Like,
why'd I have to come all the way out here?
And so he calls forth Rhaenys and says, hey, like, you're the one who's closest to Corlys. What would Corlys have wanted? Like, Corlys obviously has talked about this with you.
Mm-hmm.
And she says what Corlys wanted.
Yeah, she's like, well, you know what? I think he's made his succession pretty clear. And on top of that, Rhaenyra has just,
by the way,
offered a pretty cushy marriage arrangement. So that taken into account, I think we will be proceeding as planned.
And for me, seeing how pissed Alicent was and how pissed Otto was, again, just so good. And for me, I think as much as the marriage proposal, I'm sure did it, if you recall last week, I said how Alicent blatantly insulted Rhaenyra in front of everybody, like saying, oh, he's over there entertaining the squires.
Yeah.
When I said that could have, I think that scene in particular was going through Rhaenys' head.
Like, I could really see that factoring in.
Because like it wasn't something that Alicent was just like flailing around saying. Like, there was clear intent. She was clearly, like, she was even smirking about it with Sir Criston Cole. It wasn't like
yeah.
And
So, and then everybody accepts that and they all shake hands and that's that.
Well, I also want to point out Aegon was like amused at this point. Like
Aegon is chaotic evil.
he very much is. Like he's laughing at it. And Vaemond starts to do things that I think, as they say back in the old times, he forgot himself. I think he forgot who he was talking to.
Which we already had this conversation at the top of the episode, so I don't feel any need to dig in. There's an argument to say that he's sticking to his principles and that he comes out and loudly declares that Rhaenyra's children are bastards. I think he was just letting his feelings run away from him.
Yeah, he didn't think that one through.
No, and he gets a head full of steel.
He gets he loses a few pounds.
Great effect work on
that. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh!" because, and also the tongue. But for me, when Viserys got to his feet, like pretty quickly within the shape that he was, and Drew, like he wasn't using his cane. Like he clearly was angry, like beyond like.
Which now that you say that, it's like, I mean, he called for his tongue, but this is kind of Daemon showing his support again.
Yes,
to the king. That's like, oh, that's where we're going. Got you.
And I also love how Otto is like immediately like, remove his sword, like call it, like,
and everyone else is like, nah, dude, this is where this was going.
And like Daemon's like, I'm already doing it. He like sheathes his sword and like walks away, even though the Kingsguard did draw their swords. I'm like, Otto, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, again, I know I hate Otto, I hate him, but at the same time, like you can admit, like, what were they gonna do?
Yeah,
like,
Otto's just being a bit of a sore loser here. That's what's going on.
That it's gonna be on his memoir.
I think that's it for that. The big scene, though.
Well, I do think it's worth noting that Aemond has this weird, like, he looks impressed. Like, Aemond is, like, looking at Daemon, and he has, like, this look of almost childlike awe on his face.
Sure.
While Helaena is, like,
yeah,
freaking out, which rightfully so.
Oh, I have a note on here, and I don't want to draw this episode out too much longer, but you, as the deeper Westeros fan, what is the Doom? What is he talking about there?
The Doom of Valyria?
Yeah. Can you give me that in 30 seconds?
The quick way to put it is Valyria, which is where the Targaryens are from. Like, there was a race of people where the Targaryens were not even the kings of. They were high lords of it, and they were all dragon lords, or they were very wealthy merchants like the Valyrians. Something happened. We don't know what, but Valyria now is so uninhabitable that anybody that goes there dies and never returns. Well, they assume that they die because no one ever returns. Even like going boats towards Valyria, there's toxic fumes. The fan theory is that volcanoes erupted and it made it almost like into a nuclear zone.
Okay.
But again, nobody really knows what happened to Valyria other than Valyria was destroyed because the Valyrians, which are the race of people that are Targaryens and Valyrians, were like they ruled the world. They enslaved everybody. They were ruling over everybody. And when the Doom happened, they lost control over the entire world. And so the Targaryens decided to go to Westeros. They had Dragonstone, and they had 3 dragons, and they're like, hey, you know what? Let's build a new Valyria.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just Vaemond made a few references to his house having survived the Doom, and I'm like, that sounds metal as fuck, but yes. I don't know what he's talking about.
It is a big deal because all of them died. Like, there wasn't anybody, I shouldn't say, there was very few families that survived the Doom of Valyria.
Cool little history lesson with Bryce there. Professor Bryce.
That
I'm concludes another.
I'm sure there'll be people that are saying that I'm missing or misinterpreting things, but I'm doing my best without reading any of the previous Song of Ice and Fire. But
so Rhaenys is looking over Vaemond's body in the morgue.
Yes,
as it's being prepared for travel and I assume commitment to the sea.
Yes.
And again, we see the prosthetic with his head cut in half. It looks amazing in this scene.
Yes.
The new maester talks to her and he says, it is ill luck to look upon the face of death. And she responds, the stranger has visited me many times. The stranger has visited me more times than I can count, Grand Maester. I assure you, he cares little whether my eyes are open or closed. And then it cuts to a shot of her with the bokeh candlelight in the background. So badass. This is what I'm talking about.
And for me, how I interpret the scene is this is her almost saying I'm sorry, because this is she's acknowledging that she has picked a side and this is the consequences of her picking a side.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is you look at her face and she does look deep in contemplation. Because
I'm sure she loved Vaemond, because I know Corlys loved Vaemond. It was
absolutely.
It was the brother. It was Corlys's brother. This is her brother-in-law that she
has because they live at the same
yeah
place. So this is probably somebody that she's eaten thousands of meals with.
Yes. And because of her decisions, it has led to his death. And I'm sure that, yes, he made his own decision. He chose to call the princess a whore and the princes bastards. But he wouldn't have done that if Rhaenys
had let it go.
Yeah. So again, just
there's a lot there.
There's a lot
if you read
there.
Between the lines a little.
And I'm sure she's also thinking about all the loss that she's had. In her head, she's lost Rhaenyra. She's lost Helaena. She doesn't know if she's going to lose Corlys.
Sure. Oh, geez. Yeah.
There is death around her, and she could, she might even be thinking, is this the death of the house I've married into?
Sure.
But the next climax scene starts, and it's the Targaryen dinner.
The Last Supper, you could say.
The Last Supper.
They even set up, he's not there to start, but they set up Viserys right in the middle at the Jesus spot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, y'all get it.
And Alicent and Rhaenyra are not looking at each other at all. They're not acknowledging each other. And eventually the king is brought in.
Now, there's something in the blocking, the positioning of this I want to point out.
Okay.
And this I got from the internet. This isn't me just genius television picking this out, but I think it's fantastic, and it just reinforces some things.
Okay.
They seat the Greens, for the most part, to his right, and the Blacks to his left.
Interesting.
And if you look at Viserys's body, particularly his face, there is already a pretty clear divide there. And by them doing this, it's reinforcing that okay, the Greens, this is the corruption within the family, and this other is the
purity.
Healthier side.
So are you saying that Team Black is the healthier side?
I'm just saying I think the creators are showing their cards a little bit. This is actually reinforced throughout the episode, though. When Alicent's talking to the king, she's on his right side. His deformed, his eroded side. And when Rhaenyra and Daemon are talking to him, it's the other.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
I love it. I love it because it insinuates even more shade at Otto.
No.
But again, I just think it's worth reiterating that Targaryens don't seem to have respect for religion, because Alicent says for them to say grace, and the only Targaryen at the table who shows that level of grace is Aemond.
And there's some tension at the dinner scene off the bat.
Especially, go ahead.
Like Alicent is like of course she calls for prayer, because she's found religion, and I didn't write it down, but she says something to the effect of like peace to Vaemond's soul, which just happened. So that's like, yeah, let the dead rest, but she's kind of kicking sand in what Daemon just did.
Yeah.
Like that was a deliberate action taken by another person at the table.
And Daemon was amused at that. But
yeah, his whole what?
Me
or more like come on.
Like that was so like 2 hours ago. But then Viserys calls a toast for his grandsons.
Yeah.
And for their engagement, which that I'm sure was not feeling good to Alicent. And this entire time, Aegon's just being such an ass to Jace.
Yeah, that's the other side of it that I'm talking about, where he's like not playing ball. Like he's like, y'all saw the episode, but he's being an ass. Yeah. There's some tension here, like it's right at the surface.
And to me, I first was wondering, like, why is he being like this? Because he was always friendly with his nephews before. Like, they pulled the prank on Aemond with the pig.
Yeah, well, they also haven't seen each other in around 6 years.
True.
Probably.
But for me, I think it has more to do with that. I think he's jealous that, like, I don't think he's attracted to it. Like, isn't it weird he's not attracted to his sister wife? Like,
do your duty. Like Aemond, he gets it.
While, like, Jace, like, Bela is the actress is a very beautiful actress, and like she's also supposed to be a very beautiful character within this show. So I'm sure there's a level of like jealousy that he wasn't granted that level of.
Yeah. Also, I think he's just gotten worse with age.
No, he's terrible.
I think it's plain to see.
I'm not trying to do that.
I mean, I do think you have a point though. Like that could be why he's latching onto that in particular.
But after that, Jaehaerys starts saying, "It both gladdens my heart."
Sorry, who?
Sorry, not Jaehaerys. Viserys says, "It both gladdens my heart and fills me with sorrow to see faces around the table." And he starts just talking about how the family's grown distant and that there's the animosity and that there's the anger, and everybody sort of has the demeanor of like being like a child that's being scolded by their parent. And then Viserys goes mask off. Mask off.
Why are my thoughts drawn to a particular Rick and Morty episode that might have to get discussed on this podcast?
Best use of the song. Best use of the song.
This is another big dramatic moment, and it read better to me in this watch, but this one I feel like does tip a little bit into the melodrama, but it's still an effective scene.
Well, for me, because I wasn't really registering the first time that I watched. I'm like, oh, he's got a bandage on his face. And then when he came in with a mask, I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, why does he? But I didn't think much of it. But when it came off and just, he's missing his cheek, he's missing his eye. And I'm just like, oh, this is so much worse than like what I was imagining.
Keep it on, keep it on.
Mask on, mask on. And the level, like he acknowledges that he's gonna die soon, and he jokes around about like, I no longer have a pretty face if I ever had a pretty face. And then he just starts begging, essentially, like, we're a family, we need to stay together. Like there's so much sympathy because I've seen people in my own life that are trying to almost that have this like desire to like, we need our family to be together. Like we can't be fighting amongst each other over things that are trivial compared to what family is.
You know what he's doing, Bryce? He's pleading with them to turn this dragon house into a dragon home. And he makes a pretty good case for it.
And that's all for today.
He says, "Let us no longer hold ill feelings in our hearts. The crown cannot. Let us not. Let us no longer hold ill feelings in our hearts. The crown cannot remain strong in the house of the dragon. The crown cannot remain strong if the house of the dragon remains divided. But set aside your grievances, if not for the sake of the crown, then for the sake of this old man who loves you all so dearly." Great bit of performance. And his line rating is, of course, a lot more heartfelt than mine, but it hits me as an audience member, and it clearly hits everybody at the table, except for probably Aegon too. But
And Otto.
oh yeah, did you take special note?
Oh, I took special note.
Of course.
So
Your eyes never off.
everyone knows what I'm looking for. But Rhaenyra gets up and she says she does a toast to Alicent, and again, like, you can tell that this is a very sincere toast where she's like, "You've stuck to my father and have taken care of him, and I really appreciate all that and see everything that you do." And Alicent comes up and she almost returns it and says that she sees Rhaenyra and she admits that she's going to be a great queen. And for that moment, the friendship's back again. Like, it's almost like,
And it doesn't feel performative.
no,
Like, I think that they are genuine in this moment, and it's, I mean, a few minutes down the line, it's the next generation that messes it all up.
yes. But they give the toast, they all the drink. But if you watch, Aemond doesn't even pretend to take a sip. Like, Aemond does not move to drink out of his cup. Otto, you see him like lower his cup down, but you do not see him swallow. You do not see him do anything. So to me, that shows that he did not participate in the toast.
Mm.
And again, I'll take the heat for being an Otto hater. I am an Otto hater.
That's my favorite bit on this podcast. But then they bring in a little bit of music. Everybody seems to be doing okay.
And then Aegon starts egging on Baela. Like, he goes over to Baela and starts talking to her.
Does Viserys peace out
No.
before that? Okay.
Oh, Aegon's doing this in front of his dad. Like,
Okay.
again, I think that Aegon never really got attention from Viserys. Like, Viserys, I think, has always viewed Aegon for what he is, a fuck up. Like,
Yeah, and he was unwell by the time he was born.
yeah.
Viserys, I mean. Not to the degree that he is now, of course, but
And
yeah.
you do see a level that Aegon does care for his father. Like, there are scenes, particular scenes when Viserys is talking or when he's suffering, you can see concern on Aegon's face. So to me, that shows that he's doing a lot of this for attention. Not excusing the monster that he is. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's just more to give a color of the paint that is used. But Jace gets to his feet and he does the whole like, let me do a toast now.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I'm with you. Because it's he has to pass it off because like his emotions get the better of him, and then he's like, a toast.
And again, to me, this is another reason that I really do like Jace, because even though Jace is young, hot-headed, he's intelligent enough and he's sly enough
And good-natured.
good-natured. Like, he's as pure of a soul that you can get in the world of Westeros.
Yeah.
And it was almost worth just seeing like how deflated Aegon got at that. Like,
Yeah.
And Jace starts dancing with Helaena. Like, he's doing that just to like mess.
Yeah, but there you go. I mean, that's when the music comes in and people seem to be doing okay. Viserys looks around the room and
I also want to point out, you do see a point where Otto does this like little clap while he's smiling. If I understand it correctly, that wasn't scripted. Like, that was just caught on camera because the actor was reacting to
something that had happened in the scene.
Yeah,
The take.
Yeah, and so they're like, hey, well, let's keep that. Like, we like that. It's very much tying to, because I love this music that's being played, especially when it's like zooming in on Viserys, and it's starting to shift a little bit to be seeming more of like an internal monologue. And I think this is like when he starts to die. Like, this is
Well, it's that old thing where it's like, if you have a reason to live, you can hold out like to fulfill that. Or it's like how people die so much quicker after they retire. So him looking around, seeing his family seemingly at peace, I mean, to any degree that to the greatest degree that he could have hoped to achieve.
yeah, it's the happiest they've been together and interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Like, he literally has the two sides dancing with each other, like, off to the side.
But you could see him in that moment being like, I've done it. It is accomplished. Like, and then that's when the pain like overtakes him and he asks to be taken away.
And as he's going out, a pig is coming in. And this pig,
Which may remind someone about something that happened a few episodes back.
yeah, poor Luke sees that pig placed in front of Aemond, and in Aemond's defense, like, he has the eye patch right there, so he doesn't see that the pig is in front of him and being placed in front of him. And so Luke starts laughing, and Aemond looks, notices the pig, and again, in Aemond's defense, Luke is like full on like giving him a smirk, like,
Sure.
which, not a smart move. He literally rides the biggest dragon in the world now. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, Aemond has developed a bit of an ego, it would seem, but also like there's a backup where that came from, you know, like he's got the goods.
yeah, the thing is, he's got an ego, but I feel like he's got the dragon energy to back it up.
Yeah. We will continue to monitor, but there does seem to be surprising levels of dragon energy in this one-eyed fellow. And then he proposes one final toast.
Well, before that happens,
What could it be?
oh, sorry.
Bryce is pondering his
There's
copious notes.
I
They're so dense.
realized I cut over something that I like. Aemond and Aegon didn't drink to Jace's toast.
Mhm.
Also, after that toast, Helaena says, "Beware the beast beneath the boards."
Yeah. What's that about?
Probably not important.
No, well, okay, so she's made 3 kind of declaration, like mini prophecies in the show.
Yes.
There was the one about he'll have to close an eye. That was for Aemond.
Mm-hmm.
I've totally forgotten what the other one was, but I don't
The
think
other-
it's come to fruition.
The other one was red thread, green thread, a dragon flesh.
Yeah.
You get the and then beware the beast beneath the boards. And after she says that, Helaena gives this a toast, which was my favorite. Do you not remember Helena's toast?
No.
So she gives a toast to Bela and Rhaena. And they're like, "You're now engaged. And it's not so bad. Mostly he just ignores you, except sometimes when he's drunk." And like,
no.
and it's one of those things that's just hilarious because like Aegon's been such an ass this entire time, and he's getting roasted by his wife in the most innocent of ways. And like, but yeah,
that takes us to
that
the
takes
final
us-
toast.
The final toast, yes, and where he does a toast, where he's complimenting his nephews and calls them strong boys, which everyone knows. Like,
It's the classic technique developed by Kristen Cole, perfected by Aemond in this episode.
And the moment is gone at that point. Like Jace goes to like confront Aemond. Like Luke goes around, but Aegon takes him and slams him into the table. Like I don't like
good time's over.
Yeah, good time is completely over.
I also like that because the music is diegetic, it can actually stop.
Yes,
like a almost a record scratch.
No, and I'm actually I hated Alicent up until this dinner. And then Alicent goes to Aemond and she says, why would you say something before these? Why would you say such things before these people? Which is a complete flip of how it was in the last episode.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Like, she was proud of Aemond for saying, like, calling him bastards and, like, was like, that's my boy. Like, I'm proud of you. And it's done, like, a complete 180. Like,
and this is where it's, like, really firmed up for me that they meant what they were saying earlier with Viserys present, and that it is this younger generation that hasn't seen the realities of the world and maybe doesn't comprehend the stakes that can't get it together.
Yes. And again, that line alone for me, like, built up a lot of good favor towards Alicent. Like that she had lost throughout the past few episodes for me personally.
Yeah, she's been swaying to the dark side a little bit, but she's back. At least a little.
And then Aemond responds with such an Aemond response. I was expressing how proud of my family I am, but my nephews are not proud of theirs.
Yeah.
Like, again, just a straight up jab. Like, and
also, the dude's feeling a little more like a psychopath with each passing episode.
And that's when Daemon, like, because Jace is going in again, and Daemon, like, tells him to cut it off, and they square up. And
yeah, that's Daemon. That's real dragon energy.
That's real dragon energy. And to me, and again, I know you've not seen the show, but to me, it's very much from the boys. There's the Superman equivalent. And then there's Soldier Boy, who was like the Superman before Superman. And like Soldier Boy is like, who do you think you are? Like, and he's like, you're wearing a cape. I'm better than you. Again, I'm butchering the quote. I'm sorry for you, the boys fans. But he's like, you're wearing a cape. I'm better than you. And he's like, oh no, I'm the upgrade. And then they start duking out and fighting. And that to me had the very much same energy. Like, where Aemond is like, oh no, I'm better than you. And Daemon's like, sit down. Like, you don't like
I am very much looking forward to what feels like the inevitable Daemon to Aemond. Oh, look at that. Daemon to Aemond fight.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
I hope their dragons get involved.
Oh, they will. They will. And to close out this scene, Rhaenyra and Alicent come together, and they genuinely are like talking, and like Alicent's apologizing, and again just solidifying that they meant it. They're showing that fondness for each other that I think, and again, I think that's why they were so bitter angry, because there's that saying that love and hate are the same emotion, like it's the same chemical,
or you know, like two sides one coin, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that it's just showing like all that hatred that they've had for each other could easily just have flipped back over for love and respect for each other, because they were best friends at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. And will it be enough? I kind of doubt it, but we'll see.
Will it be enough? Now, the second to last scene I think is very, very important for what's going to be set up for the show going forward.
Hit us with it.
So we see a cloaked figure go to a brothel. The brothel where Lady Mears? Mysaria.
The White Worm.
The White Worm. And we see the servant who brought Dyana.
Yeah, so it's the servant girl that brought her the tea, indicating that the White Worm is aware of that interaction.
Not only that, but she has a very high up spy in the castle and knows what happened that night.
Yes. And that might lead to some stuff, but not in this episode.
And then we're in the King's Chambers.
This scene, we were so close.
So close.
And Viserys, he just couldn't stick the landing.
And again, I'm convinced he thinks it's the night before. He thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra.
Yeah, well, Bryce, they say you shouldn't drink and drive.
You should do Milk of the Poppy and declare your dying wish.
You shouldn't Milk of the Poppy in monarchy. None of that.
That's going to be our first t-shirt line.
So to summarize, Viserys is fucked up. He probably just got a double dose of the Milk of the Poppy.
Yes.
Because he's been off it all day.
Yes.
And then Alicent comes to him. He mistakes her for Rhaenyra and basically picks up the conversation that they were having the last time she was at his bedside. And she gets little bits and fragments of talking about...
Because he's talking about the prince that was promised.
Yes, the Song of Ice and Fire and all that. But because that is Aegon's dream, right? So then the name pops up, and what Alicent hears is that she needs to be the one to seize the throne, and that Aegon is the way.
Yes.
It is very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. And you can see Viserys, and like Alicent leaves the room at that point, and you can see Viserys give up. Like he says, it hurts too much, or something along those lines.
He says no more.
No more. Yes. No more. He's reaching up, and his last words are "my love," which to me, I think he sees Emma. I think Aemma. I think we all know that he sees Aemma.
Yeah, that's confirmed by Patty.
Oh, okay.
I watched an interview that he did with In Creative Company.
Okay.
Really good interview, by the way, if anybody's looking for some insight into the show and Patty's character.
Okay.
But he says as much, that came from him. That was his idea, that the last thing that he sees before he dies is Aemma. And that's what he's reaching out for. Which goes along with, there have been some breadcrumbs throughout the series that she becomes more meaningful to him, and maybe he sees her more as he decays.
Well, I'm sure he's haunted by her in the sense that he killed, she was, according to the Maesters, she was going to die regardless. But he made the decision to kill her.
Yeah. Devastating.
And I have to say, this is, and again, the courtroom scene and the dinner scene alone, this is probably at least tied for my favorite episode of the season so far.
It's great. And it's a big one. I would say this is probably the biggest episode of the season.
Yeah.
Sort of breaking from the Game of Thrones tradition of episode 9 being the one. No, you disagree?
This is a big episode, but episode 9 does not disappoint.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. And maybe we can revisit this conversation then. This is the one that people seem to latch onto. I thought this was a really great episode. It's not my number one pick, but it's really solid, and especially all of the Viserys stuff. I put that a little bit more on Patty.
Yes.
And want to applaud him. It's great. No complaints. It's just my gut being top 2, 3 probably.
And this might be very broad, and I know that you're a lot more familiar with the world of cinema in the world, but I've heard a lot of people say that the ultimate goal of cinema is to make you feel something, to make you feel like.
Yeah, that's the old quote, which I'm not going to attribute because I forget. But it's that's the basis of art, is somebody feeling an emotion and then trying to recreate that for another person.
And for me, Paddy Constantine, everything he does in this episode, I am feeling one with just my personal experiences that I've seen, as well as just, again, I don't have an experience of a family member coming to be a judge in a court case of mine.
Yeah.
But just that scene alone, when he comes into the throne room, I still get an emotional reaction, even though I've seen it probably 6 times just watching it on YouTube or watching it in my first
It got
watch.
me this time as well. Yeah.
Like it's just so, like, again, it's moving for me, and it's a lot.
You want to get a little bit of news on this, Bryce?
Let's hear it.
So this episode, you know who directed it?
Let's hear it.
Geeta Vesant Patel. It was written by Aline Shim, and also a female DP on this episode. So all women involved. I think that leads to good results in this show so far.
I think so.
And if you like what you saw here, good news, because this director is set to helm 2 episodes in the next season, including the finale.
Bum, bum, bum. I'm excited for that. Which, the finale in season 2 will be episode 8.
No, they got her on the 8s.
She likes her 8s.
But yeah, great episode. I
Great
don't have anything other to say. Do you want to do our fit picks?
I am ready for the fit picks.
All right. You want to start us off with your runner-up?
I will start up my runner-up, and there was a lot of good ones. And I, again, feel a little guilty for picking her as often as I do, but Rhaenyra's court dress that she was wearing, it had the black, but again, it had like the scale leather. Like she was wearing like some sort of like leather that had like, looks like
Okay,
scale.
but is this one different than what she arrives in?
It's the same one.
Yeah, because that's my pick.
Okay.
That's my number 1.
That's your number 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I don't have much more to say than that. You've kind of ruined the surprise. But yeah, like the slash across the top, and we don't get like a close up, but it almost looks like a heart, and on her middle, the design there.
Yeah.
Really cool. Good look for her.
Well, since we got your number 1, what's your follow-up?
Okay, yeah. So my runner up was gonna be what I've described as Alicent's velvet green imperial outfit.
Yes.
That it's the same period that she's wearing, and it has the gold circles on the side with the chain leading down and that giant 7-pointed star in the middle.
Yes.
She just looks real good in those green fits.
She looks like she is about to rule an empire.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not going to lie. My number 1 is more just a send-off for the character, but King Viserys's courtroom fit.
I considered it.
I really liked it. Just the black furs, the gold that he's wearing, the gold mask. Like, how can you not?
I really dug the design of the mask.
Yes.
I wasn't just joking around there when I made that comment earlier.
And I don't know if you noticed, but there was a scratch through the eye on the mask.
Yeah, I did notice, but what is that about?
He has a son who has a scratched eye.
Oh, that's true.
So maybe like a way to appease.
Homage. So, well, okay, but which eye? Because it's his.
It's the other eye. It's the other eye.
It's the other one. But I think in the book, Aemond loses the other eye.
I'm not sure. Again, I haven't read it, but I'm more than happy to look into that and see.
This also, I'm glad that you made this pick because part of the fit is his cane.
Oh yeah,
which is the dragon the justification, because there's a dragon carving at the top of it, and that's why we can talk about this on our dragon podcast.
We got our dragon in, yay!
It looks really cool though.
Yes,
and there is something to where he's like using that to propel himself. Like he's like clinging to like his Targaryen-ness.
Yeah, no, I agree. But all in all, I may not be the same for you. I know it's a good episode to you, but I have to say it's probably tied for my favorite episode so far that we've seen of this show.
Don't reveal all, because you and I we've talked about doing kind of like a wrap up best of season 1.
Okay, how about this? It's my favorite. It's one of my favorites to this point.
It's absolutely in the running.
Yes,
for the bests.
But that is episode 8 of the House of the Dragon season 1. Lord of the Tide. We really appreciate everybody that stuck out for this. Again, comment below. Is my fantasy...
All right. Do we want to hit them with it again one more time?
Yeah, let's hit 'em.
I can do my lineup. I'll omit the dragons.
Okay.
But assuming the dragons are involved as well, we have Daemon Targaryen, Rhaenys Targaryen, and Jaehaerys, with support from Corlys Velaryon. Up against,
you've got Aemond Targaryen, you've got Rhaenyra Velaryon, and you have Aegon II Targaryen with support from Harwin Strong.
who wins the war? We want to know.
Who wins the war? Or comment below what your favorite Bruce Willis movie is.
If you know, you know. Also, you can email, if you don't want to comment, if you're too shy about it, you can email us at biglizpod@gmail.com if you want to let us know any of that.
Big Liz Pod.
All right, that's it.
Good night.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.